Okay, here we are. We're heading into the United Nations. A big day. Yemen, Hodeidah taken over by UAE. Ghoulish. Cameroon. People killed in Cameroon. Ports invaded in Yemen. The UN's attempt to cut this off was pretty wan. Most tellingly, former UN envoy to Libya, Bernardino Leon, was allowed to negotiate, while working for the UN, a contract with the UAE Diplomatic Academy. Did he come up with this strategy of the 48-hour notice and then war crimes? Because it is a war crime. Particularly when you're told in advance that invading a port will put 250,000 civilians at risk, and you do it, it's a war crime. No amount of money, no amount of fake TV, no amount of access to the UN, no amount of smiling Gutierrez changes that fact. But it might be a get-out-of-jail-free card. So the schedule today is as follows. 9:40, and that's just about now, there's an event about China's Belt and Road. We have nothing against belts or roads, but we don't like bribes. And South-South News, in the name of Belt and Road, and particularly China Energy Fund Committee of Patrick Ho, in the name of Belt and Road, gave money to the PGA. Sam Kutesa. It's an outrage. And they just go on. 10 a.m., NoKo. Will there be some Cameroon action? Let's see. 3 p.m., Gaza in the GA. A resolution by Kuwait, who, by the way, we're told, blocked a statement about Hodeidah. They're part of the coalition. Now, we like their diplomacy, we like their diplomats, but it's pretty hypocritical to be beating the drum about one humanitarian killing of civilians and blocking statements on the other, especially if you're criticizing those who block your statements. You're blocking statements too. A plague on all their houses. The UN is a joke. We're going in. So they said this meeting was open. They said that this meeting was open at the beginning, but it says closed. It makes no sense at all. So what is this?
Yeah, there are lots of complaints about it, for sure.
Many voices stress the partnership role development helping to de-risk investment and providing much needed funding also emphasized. And I want to point out that the Belt and Road Initiative brings together both of these solutions and more. So amidst the challenges, there are solutions that we need to celebrate and multiply. The Belt and Road Initiative is one of them. It is not just about financing the developing countries, providing improved transport routes and South-South cooperation. More than this, it represents a commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals, to climate action, and to multilateralism. Against this backdrop, please allow me to make 3 points. My first point is well known, but still bears repeating. Namely, urgent action is needed to achieve the goals within our time frame. And for this, we need both developed and developing countries, public and private sector, and non-traditional funding. China is playing its part by taking this much-needed initiative. Indeed, many countries are already seeing an increase in trade, economic growth, and transfer of technology. These benefits, coupled with the right national policies, lead to the creation of decent jobs, poverty reduction, and better infrastructure. Which leads me to my second point, about the potential of the Belt and Road Initiative to bring about the kind of partnerships we need for the SDGs. The Sustainable Development Goals call on us to establish partnerships. From Montenegro to Kenya, the Belt and Road Initiative includes over 100 countries and international organizations. The Asian Infrastructure Investment provides funding through the Goals Program, which is another critical element.
So, that was strange. Very well attended. What the hell? What the hell is Fiore doing in there for UNICEF? PGA. Look up China Energy Fund Committee. I mean, it's a great thing, but I don't think it should be closed. Other PGAs have been purchased by CEFC, possibly including Gutierrez. Okay, here we go. Well, we've seen the Belt and Road. Okay. Hey, it's the Election Commission of Pakistan. Quite a scene over here. As the slaughter has begun. As the slaughter has begun in Hodeidah, the head of UNICEF was sitting mouth agape. Now, let's see. This is a UN security guard. Who's he guarding? No, nobody. Maybe just getting a coffee. Tourists, diplomats. Now, will we be too late for the stakeout? The words of concern about Hodeidah when the UN pulled out its staff, when the P3 phoned it in, when the UAE, good friend of all of them, began slaughter, absolute slaughter. Oh, it's a Dutch spokesman. Nobody on the record, not on the record. Here we are. The Belt and Road event, the sign says closed even though it's open. It's weird. Senor?
Hey, what's up?
What's going on? ¿Qué pasa? Yeah. Oh, well, this Hodeidah, you'd think they'd be talking crocodile tears. I was ready for some crocodile tears.
I've only seen the Peruvian.
Oh, man. There's a big event called Belt and Road downstairs. Conference Room 12, China, PR. They say it's closed, but it's open. I went inside and took some. The PGA is speaking, all many ambassadors there. Everyone's bowing down to the Belt and the Road, including UNICEF. I don't know why. What about the
Want to
UAE?
call an emergency meeting of the council?
As I said, we're talking to members at the moment.
What about the UAE's role? Have you? I mean, you say you've spoken to the parties. Many people say that the UAE, is more so than Saudi Arabia, is running the show here. They gave the threat of 48 hours. Has Sweden spoken to the UAE? To your knowledge, has anyone, Guterres or anyone else in the UN system, actually requested to them directly not to do it?
We are talking to all parties involved. What's important now is to come out in support of the special envoy who is actively doing shuttle diplomacy in the region, and that's where our focus is.
Sweden's reaction to the U.S., Canada, Mexico winning the World Cup bid today for the next World Cup, and Sweden's chances for this World Cup.
I don't have any comment on the bid this morning. It's news to me, but for Sweden's chances in this World Cup, well, I don't know. I'm not very optimistic, I must be honest.
Oh, man.
But
Why, 'cause
of
no
course,
Zlatan?
we're excited. Yeah, exactly. Zlatan is in Los Angeles. He should be.
That's off the record.
Breaking news. Wow. Wow. Wait a moment. Okay, well, on these war crimes. All right. So you've seen it. We actually got something, and we're going to put this up for the purpose of Oslo. The Swedish deputy ambassador is not very well. Maybe that's just humility. The U.S. has won the World Cup down the road. No one wants to say UAE, and you know what? The UAE has a diplomatic academy that includes Bernardino Leon, the former UN envoy to Libya, who was allowed to negotiate the position for filthy lucre while working for the UN. The UN is a lax joke that sometimes enables rather than opposes war crimes. Outrageous. Sure. I wanted to ask you about Cameroon. I was listening to what Mr. Fall said, and I just wondered, it seemed that on Monday, a report was put out by Amnesty International detailing in some detail first-hand accounts of torture, burning of villages, murder of suspects. And so one, can he do a stakeout if he's the Secretary General's envoy on the region? Number two, and I say it because
he hasn't been to in Cameroon in some time.
Right, because other council members praised his engagement. I wanted to ask you that. There's no engagement that you haven't announced from here.
Not that I'm aware of.
Right.
I'm not hiding any engagement.
Right. So, I mean, is the Secretary General satisfied with not necessarily the performance of Mr. Fall, but with the engagement of the government, given an Amnesty International report detailing the torching of villages?
We have expressed and will continue to express our concern about the development.
And I wanted to ask, you may not know, but photos have come out of UNDSS personnel in Buea, which is a town in Anglophone Cameroon, quite a few of them. And so people don't know what they're doing there. This goes back to the sort of distrust from the blue helmet at one of the torching sites. Sure. Is there some way you can find out if there's some, there some engagement taking place? And I wanted to, you probably have something on this. Nepal seems to have publicly announced that they're asking the UN DPA office to decamp and end its engagement. Is the UN, what's the time plan for doing that? Do you have any sort of closeout statements on that?
We're aware of the situation. I have some guidance, but I'll get it to you. Thank you.
And one thing on sexual abuse. I think it's okay. Some new cases have been disclosed, and that's all. Again, it's all to the good to be disclosing. But I did want to ask. It's a little unclear to me because in a category called investigation, The most recent one involves a Moroccan peacekeeper, and it says investigation by, TCC and OIOS. And then ones that seem to have been earlier disclosed or have taken place earlier, under investigation it just says pending. Does that mean there's no investigation yet taking place, or is there some?
It depends on the case. Thank you.
Kenya and Mali from the African states, Iran, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkmenistan from the Asia-Pacific states, Armenia and Ukraine from the Eastern European states, Brazil, Jamaica, and Paraguay from the Latin American.
Okay, here we are. The meeting has been on Central Africa. We've been waiting to talk to Mr. Francois Lanteni Fall. Yes? The man who is in charge of the UN's engagement, such as it is in Cameroon. Largely it seems to involve a golden statue taken amid the burning of villages. Now these are EU diplomats, young diplomats. Let's pull up a picture of Francois Fall so you can see him. Sani, yeah, he's loony, all right. He's going to come out. He's going to run. We're going to try to. We've asked for a stakeout. That would be the best way. There he is. That's what he looks like. You can't miss him. Ahead of NoKo. Okay, we're on the move. These were EU delegations waiting for their briefing. What does Francois Fall think of the burning of villages, targeted killings? What does he think of it? Has there been any engagement by Paul Biya? Should the UN keep using peacekeepers from a torturing army? Okay, the UK political coordinator has come out, as has the French one. Now, maybe there's some other meeting taking place, but where is Francois Lanteni Fall? We're here. We are here. They still didn't put out Mr. Francois Lanteni Fall's testimony, such as it is. There goes the French deputy. Of course, France's role in Cameroon is absolutely shameful. Shameful. Supporting Paul Biya, regardless. An ambassador, Gilles Thibault. Il s'appelle Gilles Thibault. He loves him some Paul Biya. It's a shame. It's a real shame. The UN, and these are the same P2 that claim to care so much about the killing of civilians in some places, but absolutely support it or do very little about it in Cameroon. So it's a place of hypocrisy. There goes the deputy of France, the political coordinator of the UK. Who's left inside? There was a UK deputy.
Meeting's over. Oh, the meeting's still going on. Well, some people coming out.
Ask Mr. Fall if we can have a stakeout. Mr. Francois Lanteni Fall. He's been cashing the checks for years. For years, the guy is taking public money to stand by while villages are burned down. The least he can do is every 6 months when he comes here, take a few questions. No? En français. En français. We can do it. Later today, you're going to hear some GA action about killing of civilians, and rightly so. But what about in Cameroon? Now, admittedly, a couple of countries mentioned it, but one of them even praised the engagement of Francois Fall. So we went to the UN briefing and we said, and the first thing the spokesman says, he hasn't been there in quite some time. As if he's somehow not responsible for the torching of villages because he doesn't go there. Maybe, yeah, I agree. Maybe it's he said that separatists are extremists. This totally justified the killing of non-violent Ambazonian restorationists. It's a shocking display. It's a shocking display. We're waiting for Mr. Francois Lanteni Fall. Loon Seni. He's a loon. He's a loon. Merci beaucoup. Okay. Everybody's trading in information, but what if the information has to do with death and war crimes? by an 84-year-old, an octogenarian. Let's be polite. He's an octogenarian, an octopus with a golden statue in each of his 8 tentacles. Every 6 months, Lun Seni has to come and check in. Other than that, he's just cashing the checks. Just cashing the checks. Oh, he's going to be in Yaoundé, but it's going to be for small arms. He's done it before. Small arms. Deeply concerned about the proliferation of small arms to non-state groups. Now, state groups, state killers like Bia having armored cars, napalm, apparently. Actually, they don't use napalm. They turn people's own gas against them, I've heard. We asked today, what about these UN DSS, Department of Safety and Security guys in the Mountain Hotel in Buya? What about it? Who knows what they're doing? That's the thing. The level of distrust has gone so bad. When a man in a blue helmet stood by as villages were torched, that symbolized today's UN. Okay, little by little, people are coming out, and Lansuni will come out. Lanseni fall. Now, it wasn't him, but the country team that asked about targeted killings. When's the last? Let's see what we should ask him. What should we ask him? Let's crowdsource it. When will you quit? No, let's ask him a factual question. Are you satisfied with the engagement? Have you taken note of the burning of villages? To your knowledge, is there a dialogue? Where are the kidnapped and refooled leaders? Do you believe a credible election can be held? There's a good factual question. Then we'll say the burning of villages, and then we could go to New Age gas and oil. This Periscope is about Cameroon. This afternoon will be about Gaza, but we want to nail this one down. Here we are. Oh, wait a second. Wait a moment. Wait a second. We have a gaggle of Japanese journalists waiting for whom? They're not even Japanese, but they work for Japanese media, including, well, I don't want to get into it. All I'll say is, for some reason, I'm not supposed to go past that red sign, and yet there are people, including, that ask no questions at all, none, zero, zip. Let's keep our eye on that. That's just a side footnote, a footnote. Yes, it's true. Someone has told them to be ready for some. Maybe it's Kurt. Could it be Mr. Karel van Ostrom? Could Van Ostrom have alerted the Japanese media to be ready for some burning statement that he has, taking credit for the Singapore summit? Let's get a camera out. Let's see what's happening here. We don't want to miss Lun Seni, though. Lun Seni is our focus. Lun Seni. The Loon. It's a madcap caper with Lun Seni fall. Let's see. It's an incredible place. It's an incredible place where the least you do, the more access they give you. It's Antonio Guterres and Alison Smales' fun house. Oh, shit. It's a fun house. Yes. Blue Man Group is in. All right, cool. Why are they there? Who told them to go? Maybe it's a Japanese ambassador. But then they wouldn't have the white Japanese. No. I believe we're going to find Karel van Ostrom. Could be. I don't know. We still haven't gotten to the bottom. The very bottom of this Dutch UN Security Council website issue. We have reported on it. We have asked for the UN's justification. What was their justification? What was the justification of the UN for handing over management of the website of the Security Council to a Dutch husband, photographer of the Chief of Staff of DPA? What was it? UN spokesman in the corner. He did come through, or the mission, did come through with a response about the New Age oil contract with Paul Biya. But what is this white Japanese? Well, I don't mean to. It's a phrase that's used here. Let's say Japanese reporter's assistant's gaggle. What is it? What could it be? What could have brought it about? Soon we'll find out. We cover North Korea, of course, quite closely. But we actually cover it. We've actually uncovered misdeeds by the Sanctions Committee. Whereas some, at least, just hold the phone. Hold the phone, bruh. All right. Loon Seni, man, stand and deliver. Do you believe a credible election can be held in northwest and southwest Cameroon? And what's your basis for it, since you haven't been there? Do you regret taking golden statues? This is going to... Well, we have two things going on at once. Whatever happens, we hope it happens fast. Is that Lon Seni? Wait a second. Lon Seni Fall? I don't think so. He couldn't scoot out that way. Is that Lon Seni? I think not. If it is, could it be? It is Lon Seni. How could he come out over here? Wait a second. No, it's not Lon Seni. Okay. Whew. No, I know. Well, but I think, again, it's trying to make a factual question rather than an accusatory question. He deserves an accusatory question. But the failure to answer a factual question is even more problematic. Now, here we have it. So what is this? Now, the question, let's check out our UN security operatives. Okay, we got a guy there. There's a guy. Got to be ready to leap. Leap. Look before you leap. Now, could it be Japanese media? It's a small gaggle. Are they waiting to talk to Van Osterstum? It really is pretty amazing. There. The main exit of the Security Council that we think Francois Senifal will come through, mostly because he can go straight to the elevator, up to his paymasters, right up to the ATM. There's one on the 4th floor. It's very simple. And there, in that, I'm not implying I'm not discussing at least any BIA bribes. I'm just talking about the UN paycheck, which is substantial. And I believe that for a paycheck of that size, you should answer questions. Even Big Tony, only Monday came. He only took pre-picked questions, of course. Unlike the Singapore press conference, I don't know, whatever you may think about it, there was a lot of questions, and they weren't all friendly. But that's not how they roll at the UN. The way they roll at the UN is Big Tony comes, and his spokesman, Stefan Dujarric, who chooses to evict the media that asked him the most questions, pre-picked everything, allowed one media to ask 3 questions in a row. Yes, it's true. This is a stand-up. This is what qualifies as a stand-up in the UN. If they can do it by the escalator, so can we. That's been established. Time's wasted. What do we got? Oh, man. Batteries are wasted, too. So it's trouble. This is trouble. Loon Seni! Loon Seni follows Loon. He came from the month of June. Hang on. Let's start charging up a battery.
Was there any discussion about the possible phasing out of the sanctions or what steps need to be taken?
Yeah, we had a very good briefing by our American colleague on the developments of the past couple of days. Along the lines, I think all of us have seen what happened, but a little bit more also on what happened behind the scenes. And I think the conclusion I drew at the end of the meeting was that the committee to get a full political process, verifiable, irreversible, and full denuclearization, and really also taking the humanitarian situation in account.
Can I ask the exemption?
Sorry, yes. The President Trump's remark on the sanction, that is, he doesn't want to use a maximum pressure anymore. Does that remark impact on the 70-80 committee?
The discussion this morning was very clear, reconfirmation that as long as the resolution stands, we will do our utmost to fully implement it.
Is the blanket exemption over? Was it time bound? Did it have a date at which it would end?
It's time bound.
So it's now over?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can you update us on Hudaydah, what's going on there, please?
I thought you would update me on Hudaydah because I was in the council before. Frankly, I don't know the recent developments. Anything happening there?
Who requested the consultation?
UK.
Ambassador, is there any discussion among council members of some kind of council response to the Trump-Kim summit?
No, not for the time being.
And is there any discussion about a possible statement or a press statement, presidential statement, resolution on Yemen?
No, there was no discussion yet. We'll be in the meeting tomorrow, and only in the meeting that can be raised, but not yet.
On the NoKo consultations, was there any discussion of Cameroon? In the open meeting, some people congratulated Mr. Fall for engagement, and then at the noon briefing, they said he hasn't been there in a long time. What can you say about that?
More or less the same thing as you heard in the briefing. The Cameroon was raised, yes. People expressed concern. They asked Mr. Farrell to be following the situation. You heard in the briefing that was the continuation of what was there.
Okay.
Ambassador, just go back on North Korea in your national capacity. Do you think the Council should hear perhaps a briefing on the Singapore summit, consider next steps?
Perhaps,
you're not doing anything.
Perhaps, but we didn't really have time even to discuss it amongst ourselves. The summit has just finished. I even haven't seen Nikki since then yet. Perhaps yes, it would be interesting to hear from those who were directly involved their assessment of the results.
China said yesterday that maybe there could be consideration of loosening of sanctions. What's Russia's thoughts on that?
Well, I think that is only natural that we should be thinking about steps in that direction, because inevitably there is progress on the track that should be reciprocal, that should be a two-way street. Of course, the other side should see encouragement to go forward.
Sir, do you think the U.S. amendment to the draft resolution in the General Assembly is another attempt by the U.S. to obstruct the international consensus on calling for the protection of the Palestinian people? What do you think? And are you going to be in the meeting? Are you going to speak also? Thank you.
We are not planning to speak. We'll be, of course, in the meeting. We support the resolution. On the amendment, there are concerns, security concerns of Israel, which U.S. is trying to raise. And their amendment is in that direction, but of course it is not in the spirit of that particular resolution. But we understand perfectly well the security concerns of Israel, and also condemn the missile fires on the territory of Israel.
Mr. President, do you think the UN should have a role to play in peace in Korean Peninsula?
I think that at a certain point the UN, of course, should play. It has already played. It adopted a number of resolutions on DPRK, which, by the way, contain not only the sanctions part, but the political part. What is happening around the DPRK is, in fact, de facto a roadmap proposed by Russia and China earlier last year. We see it is being implemented. We are not claiming copyright on what is happening, but obviously we see the movement in that direction. And of course, since the political process was a part and parcel of the resolutions of the PRK, the UN should continue to be involved.
Do you think what was agreed to is essentially freeze for freeze, which was discussed before? Is that your understanding?
These are elements of freeze for freeze. That's clear. You answer the questions.
Mr. Ambassador, the OPCW today, the fact-finding mission, said that it was highly likely that sarin and chlorine were used in two attacks on May 24th and 25th in Syria. Do you have any comment on that finding and whether there should be an effort to determine who was responsible?
We discussed that issue in Nairobi today. We raised the forthcoming conference of the parties of the OPCW, which is scheduled in The Hague on the 26th to the 7th of June. We expressed our great concern about that because we believe that the aim of the initiative is not in finding the proper mechanism for attribution, which cannot be a part of the OPCW because the CWC doesn't provide for any attribution. But something else going further and more sinister, we said that the only legitimate way is to re-establish an attribution mechanism is in agreement within the Security Council. Any other attempt to establish an outside of the Security Council mechanism will be illegitimate. And we warned our fellow Security Council members and those countries which are unaware of the full plans of that.
One last one. Will the World Cup interfere with Security Council business? Inevitably.
That I guarantee. Tomorrow we'll have the opening. In fact, they will have an opening in Moscow at 10:30 local time. As I told, we established TV sets to watch for everyone instead of boring business. Watch the World Cup in the United Nations, two in the Delegates Lounge, one at Betray, it's around here, two in the Vienna Cafe, one by the entrance, so there will be places locations where you can watch it. Tomorrow we will come to the Delegates Lounge before the opening ceremony, and then we'll watch the game together. The Saudi Arabia team will also come to watch it with us. And tomorrow I don't know how big the secret is, but tomorrow we'll have a photo op in the Security Council at 2:30 with all the members of the Security Council their national shirts. So if you want to laugh at us, you are welcome to come.
Even the ones who didn't make it, even the ones who didn't qualify for the World Cup.
Those who didn't qualify, it's the Security Council event, but we'll also have the team that qualified in their uniforms at the opening and maybe later here as well.
And one last question on Yemen. Are you expecting a briefing from the Secretariat, and is the meeting
They requested a briefing by DPA and OCHA.
And is it going to be open or closed?
It will be consultations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Sir, what's the score tomorrow? The score? No business will send you the information about tomorrow.
Sorry. Oh, Malu will gather us. We'll see. Okay, here we are. We just came down to check it out, whether it's true. Tomorrow the World Cup begins, Russia versus Saudi Arabia. From there, there'll be other games. Earlier today, as we put up, the Swedish deputy ambassador said he's not very optimistic about Sweden's chances. Well, they're in a group with Germany, Mexico, and South Korea. But let's see. We're going to be covering the various groups. Where will Antonio Guterres be, the Press Secretary General? Well, as we first reported in early June, he'll be spending your money flying to watch Portugal versus Morocco on June 20th. Some other things have been added to the trip, but the first thing he said is he's going there. But we'll be right here. There are two screens. This one is between conference rooms 7 and 8. 7 being where sanctions are discussed, 6 being an overflow on the UN budget. By the way, Antonio Guterres has not filed a program budget implication for his supposed resident coordinator reform. Yeah, they did nothing on Yemen, but they will be watching the soccer game. They did nothing. But you know what? On that one, look, World Cup. We got the groups. Tunisia, England, Monday, 2 p.m. I agree. It's shocking. The UN, look, Yemen, at least they're having a meeting tomorrow at noon. Cameroon, villages are burned down. They did nothing. The UN is a joke. But this is Fox Sports 1. So we don't want to violate any copyright, but we'll be here. All right then. Now we'll show you the second screen. Now we can't actually get to the screens in the Delegates Lounge, and you know why? Journalists that do nothing, journalists that ask no question, journalists that never come in, state media. Akbar Al-Yam was assigned Intercity Press Office. They could go to the UN bar and watch the game, but we can't. Oh, we can get a minder? We're not going to get a minder. We're going to watch it here, among the people in the Vienna Cafe. Two screens, and a number of groups. The first Security Council diplomat to speak out was Sweden, but they won't be the last. We will be asking more and more and more. And so let's end it with a view of the screen. Down there, for Kenyan viewers, it's Rosalind Akambe. She famously was seconded. Well, she wasn't seconded. She took a leave of absence to work on the Kenyan election, and now she's back. We'll end with her in the screen because she's a public figure. And we'll end... She's with the Uganda's ambassador.